and the author is not a conservative person, which is also really ironic when you start looking for those themes throughout the books.
You know, there are so many movies, and this is, when we talk about politics, we talk about messaging, there are so many movies that depict big government gone awry. It's incredible. I mean, you're going to have your movie makers who want to make it, you know, a big business gone awry, you know, and this kind of stuff, but far more often it's big government gone awry. And this shows me that there is such a mistrust in society of the same thing we distrust.
Mm-hmm.
Connect with that, and you can connect by discussing it through movies.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's really interesting that a lot of TV shows and movies and books and really much of the culture is about conservative values, because human nature is a conservative value. And these shows succeed because they're portraying conservative values, although they're written and performed by people who are very liberal. And that kind of cognitive dissonance is really weird to me. I've never really quite figured it out, how Hollywood can be so liberal through and through, but the stories that they write and the things that they succeed at portraying are conservative values. I mean, all of the chick flicks, all of the Hallmark movie channels, I mean, sitcoms, it's families pulling together and succeeding, it's co-workers working together to achieve a common goal, it's good guys versus the bad guys, and the good guys win.
Well, yeah, that's because they know that those things sell.
Exactly.
And they want the paycheck. That's all they care about. They don't care about promoting any, set of family values. Real quick, another movie. It wasn't a great movie, but it was completely opposite of what we expected it to be. And it's been a while since I've seen it, but Oblivion with Tom Cruise. It looks like it's this hyper-environmental type movie because the Earth appears to have been destroyed by mankind and all of this. But as you watch it, I don't want to give it away. As you watch it, there's a group of people that are trying to survive, and there's actually a scene with the Liberty Bell in it. You have to watch for it. It's real quick. But the speeches that they give are all about freedom and all about overcoming their oppressors. And what's really kind of funny is that the renewable energy sources that are being used on the planet are actually destroying the planet. So it's got some twists and turns that you don't expect.
I think Ryan. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's interesting. But Ryan was going to bring up a particular movie franchise.
Spectacular performance Ryan's going to bring up.
I think Andy should talk about him. He's obviously much better at talking about movies than I am. But some of my favorite movies of all time are the Dark Knight trilogy. There's so many conservative values throughout the movie. There's so many good lines in the movie. One that's coming to mind right now is when Morgan Freeman is standing in front of that big machine that reads all the cell phones and triangulates and basically gives him an image of what's going on. And he just says, no man should have this kind of power. And that's what the NSA has. He's like, I will not work here if you have this. This has to be destroyed. This is not right. But throughout all three of the movies, there's so many things like that. I don't have the lines memorized. I'd have to rewatch them again. Yeah, Felicia mentioned in the chat, some men just want to watch the world burn. There's just so many good one-liners throughout all three movies on conservatism, on government, on individuality, on goodness and courage, and how bad guys think. And my all-time favorite, I think, acting job or character is Heath Ledger's Joker. I think he is just so creepy and evil and mentally messed up, and he does such a good job portraying it. It's so believable to me to see this guy that just wants to watch the world burn. He just wants to have bad things happen. He doesn't really have any specific goal. He just wants to create chaos and just put people out of their element and in places they're not comfortable and see what they do and see what happens. And it just, every time I watch it, I just think he did such a good job. It's just so creepy. Yeah. So that's all I had to say about those.
Well, so often the characteristic that sets apart a great movie is the quality of the villain, not the hero. I mean, anybody ever see the movie Speed with Keanu Reeves? He didn't make the movie; it was the villain who was terrific. No, I'm serious. A lot of great movies are made by the villain. Hans from Die Hard. If you think, I'm talking action movies here, but
Gruber.
Yeah, Hans Gruber. Yeah, but even with a lot of quiet, subtle movies, Cori and I like to watch a long miniseries called what's the British one?
Pride and Prejudice.
Pride and Prejudice. And there are villains in that just drive the thing, And Heath Ledger as the Joker, that's why I thought the second Batman movie was so much better than the other two. And the other two weren't bad movies, but wow, that second one was unbelievable.
Absolutely. Just a final note on The Dark Knight is that one of the things that I really appreciated was the sort of test for humanity at the end, and that whole process and how it was shot, and just the way that everybody acted with the two ships. That scene was amazing to watch, and just the whole idea of it, the thought of not going first, not blowing up the other guy. I mean, it just everything about it was the sort of, yes, humans have this inherent desire to not hurt each other. I think that's a true thing, and maybe it's because it reflects my own personal beliefs, but to see that in a film, the way that it was presented, and with a bad guy as crazy and as nihilistic and awful as the Joker, I mean, just the way that happened, that scene was a really uplifting and great scene to me. I mean, one of my favorites of all time. Fishy.
Yeah, so this is a movie that I've loved for a long time. I don't know if anybody's even seen it. It's not one that typically shows up in favorites or people talk much about, but it's The Jack Bull. Has anybody seen that?
Nope.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah, interesting. I'll put the IMDb up because it's got John Cusack in it, actually. And it's the story of this horse trader. He trades horses and he deals with them, and he's very good at it. And what happens is he runs into a conflict with the rancher that has agreed to take some horses, and he's abused them, and he's abused the caretaker he's left with him, and has decided, well, I'm not going to buy the horses because look at the condition they're in, when he actually put them in that condition. And so it's horrible to see, the mistreatment here, but this is all taking place in Wyoming before it becomes a state. And so all the politics are linked up in here. Who's in with the judge, and how can they have the case thrown out so that this horse trader doesn't have any recourse, and they can just kind of good old boy their way through it. And it's the whole story of how he attempts to force this rancher to make restitution for these horses and to put them back in the condition that he gave them to him. And the story is this deep drama about the willingness that he has and the lengths to which he will go to make this guy do right. In spite of all the corruption that's around him, in spite of all the politics that's around him, he still fights on for what's right and what he's owed. And interestingly, Drake Bell of Drake and Josh, if anybody remembers that show, plays his son in it, and it was the first time I'd ever seen him. It was a really good role for him too. But it's a great, I'm not going to tell anybody how it ends, but it's fascinating, and it's such a interesting period piece because it's set in those days before Wyoming becomes a state. It is a beautifully shot movie, but it is a stirring, gripping story too.
That sounds a lot like Liberty Valance, just without the guns and the fighting and the Lee Marvin. It sounds very much like it though. Very similar themes of states not yet becoming states and the way that laws worked and just the lawlessness and how things were handled and trying to get people to abide by the laws. That's a pretty big deal.
Well, especially when the entire system's corrupted around you. Another one of my favorites, Gran Torino. I adore that film. Clint Eastwood, again, somebody I'd watch read his grocery list, but just an incredible performance in a well-drawn character who is so deep. And it drives home that theme about people being less threatening, I suppose, or less other when you get to know them. The persistence of getting to know someone makes relationships change so much that maybe you begin to see people from a whole group differently because you've had interaction with one person. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of standing up for what's right in the face of really awful bullying and horrifying things going on in these families. I love, love, love that film.
I think one of the big themes for me that I love, great movie. One of the big themes for me is the whole notion of people only valuing somebody for what they can get out of him, and because Clint's family only valued him for the desire to get his money when he died, and that showed over and over and over again. And what mattered to him with these people he met in the neighborhood, even though he didn't relate to them at all that mattered to him was that they didn't only want him around for what they could get out of him. And that was the thing that just drove through the movie for me. None of us like being loved conditionally. None of us like being only wanted for what we offer. We want to be wanted for who we are. And he was he was a mean guy like he always plays. And yet he was wanted for who he was. And I just thought, just magnificent.
We just lost all of our Ayn Rand fans. They left. It's done. It's over.
Cool. Can we talk about them behind their back now?
We talk about them in front of their backs. So, yeah, sure. That's a movie that I haven't seen. Is any of the Atlas Shrugged films? None of them.
Oh. I thought you were going to say Gran Torino, and I was going to freak out.
Oh no! I've seen Gran Torino, and Gran Torino's excellent. It's a movie that everybody should see at least once, and as you said, Clint Eastwood is a master. He's great. The way that political correctness sort of just instantly goes away. It disappears within the context of this film. Go ahead.
No, that reminds me, just out of the blue, though, don't let me forget when you're done. There's something I want to bring up.
Somewhat similar feeling to a movie with a great central performance and, a guy, but an even less sympathetic main character is As Good as It Gets with Jack Nicholson, who also becomes the hero.
Love that one. It's so funny.
Oh yeah, he also becomes the hero for the gay character played by Greg Kinnear, and for just because, which is ironic because he hates gay people, but he hates all people, so he's very equal opportunity, and he's just incredibly troubled and almost with Tourette's, in that he cannot stop himself from yelling terrible things, and yet he becomes a sympathetic character and even a hero to those in the movie, which I just thought was really great.
Fishy, you want to get back to that thought that you had?
Oh, you were in the middle of something.
No, I was just saying that the political correctness in the context of the film sort of the mutual respect between